Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. As required by law, all first and second economic impact payments issued, eligible people can claim Recovery Rebate Credit. IR 2021-38, February 16th, 2021, Washington. The IRS announced today that, as required by law, all legally permitted first and second round of economic impact payments have been issued, and the IRS now turns its full attention to the 2021 filing season. So note that the economic impact payments first and second round should be out. Second round was quite recent, which means they had to put some attention on the issuance of the second round as well as getting ready for the tax preparation issues that could be applied to the first and second round of the economic impact payments. That includes the Recovery Rebate Credit. So that means the economic impact payments should be out at this point in time, and you should then have the information necessary related to the economic impact payments, hopefully, to then do the tax return for 2020, which will be filed, of course, in 2021. Remember that the economic impact payments are basically thought of as a prepayment of what would be called the Recovery Rebate Credit that's going to be on the tax return for tax year 2020 that will be filed in 2021. Therefore, we need to know and have all the economic impact payments having been issued so that we know whether or not the full amount of the economic impact payments have been received for both the first and second round to determine whether or not we should be applying for or seeing if we can get some benefit from the Recovery Rebate Credit. In other words, if the first and second round of the economic impact payments went out for something other than what they should have, meaning they're less than what they should have been based on 2020 numbers, basically income numbers and requirements, then the remedy for that at this point in time is to file the 2020 tax return in 2021, taking the Recovery Rebate Credit, which will calculate basically kind of like the economic impact payment requirements, calculate the same thing, but with regards to the 2020 numbers, and then subtract that, you would think, right, from what actually got paid in the format of a prepayment, economic impact payments, the difference then possibly being something you could get for the taxes that are filed for 2020 in 2021. Now, the people that may have a problem with the economic impact payments will typically be those possibly that had an AGI limitation for 2019 or 2018. Their income was over a certain threshold, and therefore they got less than the full amount of round one and or round two of the economic impact payments. And then in 2020, possibly their income is lower, and it will be for many people, right? And at that point in time, they may qualify for a bigger portion of the economic impact payment, and then they might be able to remedy that with the Recovery Rebate Credit. Or you might have a situation where you didn't get the payment at all for either the first or second round or both, possibly because you didn't file a tax return in the prior year, the IRS didn't have your information, or you were dependent last year, possibly a student or something like that, and in 2020, you weren't a dependent, you're independent. I'm thinking we might have more independent people in 2020, because if you're independent and you're not being claimed on someone else's tax return, then you may be eligible then for the full amount, you would think, of the economic impact payment. And since you didn't get it because you were a dependent in the prior year and they based it on the prior year information, you might be able to get access to it with the Recovery Rebate Credit in that situation. Okay, so beginning in April 2020, the IRS and Treasury Department began delivering the first and second economic impact payments within 2 weeks of the legislation. The IRS issued more than 160 million EIPs, economic impact payments, to taxpayers across the country, totaling over $270 billion, while simultaneously managing an extended filing season. In addition, since Congress enacted the COVID-related Tax Relief Act of 2020, the IRS had delivered more than 147 million EIPs, economic impact payments, in the second round, totaling over $142 billion. The legislation required that the second round of payments be issued by January 15th, 2020. So obviously the IRS is saying here, hey, look, we had a lot to do with this, which again, they kind of did to some degree, because the IRS and the tax code has been used as one of the major tools to kind of help out with or do something about, the problems from an economic standpoint. Obviously, the fact that they did these things may have caused some delays in the starting of the filing season and whatnot as we move forward for the filing of 2020 tax returns that will be done in 2021, meaning for them to actually process the tax returns, it might take them a little bit, it might have taken them a little bit longer to get that started than possibly it would have if they didn't have these kind of changes that happened at the end of the year and whatnot. So in any case, while some second round economic impact payments may still be in the mail, the IRS has issued all first and second economic impact payments it is legally permitted to issue based on information on file for eligible people. Get My Payment was last updated on January 29, 2021 to reflect the final payments and will not update again for first or second economic impact payments. Most people who are eligible for the Recovery Rebate Credit, and there's a link to that here, have already received it in advance in these 2 rounds of economic impact payments. So in other words, they're saying the Recovery Rebate Credit is the remedy if you didn't get the proper or correct prepayment, which is called first and second round economic impact payments. Most people should get the proper amounts of the economic impact payments and therefore don't need to do anything different or new on the 2020 tax return related to the Recovery Rebate Credit. But if you didn't get the full amount of the economic impact payment, that's when the Recovery Rebate comes in. The Recovery Rebate Credit comes in as a remedy in that situation. So if individuals didn't receive a payment or if they didn't receive the full amounts, they may be eligible to claim the Recovery Rebate Credit and must file a 2020 tax return. Now, when they say you must file a 2020 tax return, remember there's a couple different things you think about when you're asking, do you have to file a 2020 tax return or a tax return? If you look up, am I required to file a tax return? Usually the IRS is going to say the answer to that is if your income is below a certain threshold, you don't need to file the tax return because you don't really owe any taxes. So from the IRS perspective, the IRS will typically say, no, you don't really have to file the tax return if you're below this threshold, that threshold typically being something close to the standard deduction. And that just basically means the IRS isn't going to come after you, right? They're not going to take collection action and whatnot typically if you don't owe any taxes. And then there's the question of, should I file? Which is kind of a different question, right? In this case, if you're eligible for a Recovery Rebate Credit, or if you were eligible for an earned income tax credit, or possibly a child tax credit, some kind of refundable type of tax credit, or you have some kind of withholdings that were withheld from your W-2 wages, even though if they weren't enough wages to kick you over the necessary limit in order to file, then you're going to want to file, even though you possibly aren't required to file. The IRS is not going to come after you if you don't file, but if you did file, you may be able to get money back in the form of refundable credits or any kind of withholdings that you had on the income. So in order to get that Recovery Rebate Credit, if you didn't get the economic impact payments, you got to file a 2020 tax return. So eligibility for and the amount of the Recovery Rebate Credit are based on 2020 tax year information, while the economic impact payment was based on 2019 tax year information. So when they sent out the prepayment of the Recovery Rebate Credit in the format of the economic impact payments, they had to base it on information from the prior years, either 2019, 2018, or if they didn't have that, on whatever they did have. Now, the payments were pretty basic normally, so anybody that had a Social Security number, they basically sent the money out to, but they could have got it wrong in certain situations. For example, if the AGI limitation was higher than a certain threshold and it wasn't that high in 2020, obviously it could be a situation for many people, then they possibly got the amount of the economic impact payment wrong. Or if you have a situation again where you're like a student or something like that, you were claimed as a dependent in the prior year by a parent or some other individual, and then in 2020 you were not, then you might be in a situation where you didn't get the economic impact payment. And if you didn't file at all, you didn't have 2019 or anything like that, you might not have got the economic impact payment. And if there were qualifying children typically under 17, you might not have gotten the added benefit for them if the IRS didn't know about it because there wasn't any filing of the prior year tax return. So in those instances, if the economic impact payment was wrong, the remedy is to file the 2020 tax return and get the Recovery Rebate Credit. So the first economic impact payment, a 2018 return, may have been used if the 2019 was not filed or processed, meaning for the first economic impact payment, there was actually a delay in the filing requirement for 2019 returns, so there probably weren't a lot, they don't have all the 2019 returns. Therefore, they based the prepayment, the economic impact payment, on 2018. And if they didn't have that, then they still tried to look for ways to send out the money by looking at Social Security or any other kind of government payments. So individuals will need to know the amounts of the economic impact payment they received to claim the Recovery Rebate Credit. Those who don't have their economic impact payment notices can view the amounts on their first and second economic payments through their individual online accounts. So if you're doing your tax return, you got to say, okay, did I get the proper economic impact payment? If I did, I don't have to do anything special for the 2020 tax return filing. It should be easy. But if I didn't, then I might need to file for the Recovery Rebate Credit. How do I know? What if I don't remember? Well, you should have got documentation with the payment, and even if you lost that or don't have that, you should be able to file or log into your account on the IRS website. So you can go to the IRS website, go to irs.gov or to this link here, and then you can log into your account, and once you log in, they should have the information on the economic impact payments for the first and second round there. So for married filing joint individuals, each spouse will need to log into their own account. So if you're married filing joint, you should have got twice the amount of the economic impact payment because, of course, you have two individuals. But you can kind of think about the payment went out like to everybody that qualifies with a Social Security number and whatnot. So you may have to file then or look into the payments for both of the individual accounts on the IRS website to see the total payment for married couples. So to avoid refund delays, the IRS urges people to file a complete and accurate tax return. Filing electronically allows tax software to figure credits and deductions, including the Recovery Rebate Credit. The Recovery Rebate Credit worksheet on Form 1040 and Form 1040 SR instructions can also help. So you do have access, hopefully, to the free file software. If your income is below a certain threshold, you can find that or find resources for it on the IRS website by going to free file. And that hopefully can help people out, especially people that don't normally need to file, not normally required to file, but that have this need for the Recovery Rebate Credit for whatever reason, because they didn't get the economic impact payment. So anyone with income of $72,000 or less, including those who don't have a tax return filing requirement, can file their federal tax return electronically for free through the IRS Free File program. There's a link to the Free File program here. You can also find it on the IRS website at irs.gov, searching for Free File. When you go into the Free File, it will be taking you to third-party software, but you can kind of organize and pick which third-party software you want to be going to from the IRS website. So the fastest way to get the tax refund is to file electronically and have it direct deposited, contactless and free. Includes individuals' financial accounts. So if you use the free file software, you could file electronically. That's what the IRS wants. If you paper file, it could take longer. It will almost certainly take longer. If you're looking for a refund fast, then you want to file electronically. If you owe the IRS, you may not care as much. You can paper file, but even in that situation, you might still want the verification that the return has been received to avoid any penalties and interest and have peace of mind. Direct deposit also is something that you can put in place with the software to get the money directly into the account. The IRS then, once again, avoiding the need to process paper checks, which they are also trying to do. So bank accounts, many prepaid debit cards, and several mobile apps can be used to direct deposit when you provide a routing and account number. irs.gov/filing has details about IRS free file fillable forms, free VITA or TCE tax preparation sites in your community, or finding a trusted tax professional. So you might want to go to this link at irs.gov and look at all the kind of resources that might be there and available to help people file, including the free file software, the free file fillable forms, which I wouldn't recommend unless you have some practice filling out the forms. The software would be a lot easier. Or free VITA or TCE tax preparation sites, which could give you some free actual advice if that would be something that would be beneficial. I know a lot of people would like that, So you might be able to find some free sites for advice as well. Or you can look for tax professionals at a link here too. So more information can be found at the links below. The Recovery Rebate Credit, there's a video on that. Publication 5486, claiming the Recovery Rebate Credit on a 2020 tax return. Recovery Rebate Credit frequently asked questions, irs.gov/free file. Instructions for Form 1040 and 1040SR, and secure access, how to register for certain online self-help tools. There's links to all that wonderful information here. There'll be a link to this in the description.